Two lost souls. Dampness permeates the night air. Across the water, in the darkness, a police siren sounds and a church bell tolls. The lights of the city flicker in the distance. Cold waves brush the stony shore, illuminated by the pale and bright moonlight. A distant boat horn groans and wails. And then there is the sound of ungainly footsteps on a muddy track. A container ship slowly makes its way along the river, watched by a middle-aged lady with dark, straight, shoulder-length hair. She is standing at the river's edge, slightly smiling, as if in anticipation. A full moon shines through the broken clouds. The wind begins to pick up, and it whistles through the trees. A lighthouse pulses in the distance. The lady takes a breath and then walks away from the shore. Walking through the night, and through the woods, the lady comes across an isolated cottage. She looks cold, and her jacket is zipped up to the neck to keep the chill out. There are no lights on, in the detached house. She pauses, and then heads up to the front door. The moonlight casts a sharp shadow of the lady onto the wooden door frame. The woman takes out a Yale key and opens the door lock. The moonlight hits off her face, as she glances back over her shoulder, before entering. The house has 2 levels, and it looks in a well-maintained condition from the outside. She walks into the living room and switches on the light. Inside, the decor is modern, and the house appears to be lived in. She turns on some lamps, and the radio, and then she begins to have a look around. After her walk outside in the wind, Carol looks a bit disheveled, as she stands there, in the lamplit living room. But she's, by no means, an unattractive woman. She's probably about 5 foot 6 inches in height, and she has a full, rounded, figure and ample bosom. Her face has even features, and she has dark brown eyes, and a pale complexion of smooth skin. Carol is dressed casually, wearing blue jeans, and a dark blue long cardigan, which is hanging wide open, over a green top of soft material which has 6 tight buttons leading up to a wide open neck. Her chest pushes out of the top of her blouse, just enough, to draw attention. Carol flips through a photo album, while in the background, a news bulletin broadcasts from the radio. The female radio announcer voice says,
"It's also extremely grim out there, so please do take care on the roads this evening. Gale force winds are forecast for the rest of the night and severe weather warnings remain in place across the southwest and surrounding areas. It is really not very pleasant at all. Stay with us for updates on the weather situation every 15 minutes.
Carol picks up some framed pictures from the bookshelf and takes a close look at them.
And the headlines once again for the Southwest. The search continues for a missing patient who escaped from the Riverview Secure Unit earlier today. The resident should not be approached.
Carol is holding a small silver frame and touching the glass with her fingers.
The resident should not be approached, and is described as being.
Carol is holding a small silver frame and touching the glass with her fingers. The picture is of a wholesome-looking male and female couple in their early 40s. He stands tall, wearing a wool jumper and shirt. She is about 4 or 5 inches shorter and has shoulder-length straight dark hair. At this point, there is a buzzing sound, and the mains electricity cuts out. The living room becomes dark. The radio had been plugged into the mains, and so the living room is now silent. Carol lets out a sigh, and walks over to the wall light switch and clicks it back and forth. There is no power. Some moonlight is shining through the gaps in the window curtains, however. There is just enough moonlight, shining through the gaps in the curtains, for Carol to make out the outline of a small, circular, wooden table which has 4 glass candle holders sitting on it. 2 of the holders are opaque and star-shaped, while the other pair are round and clear. There is an electronic lighter on the bookshelf. Carol picks this up, flicks it, and lights up all 4 of the candles. One of the star-shaped candle holders is deep blue, while the other is dark green. The remaining 2 are clear and show a golden flame. The candles all glow away nicely on the small wooden table which Carol has now moved over to sit right next to a big, comfy, sofa chair which has wide, soft arms. There are folded wool blankets hanging over the back of the sofa chair, and the candlelight casts a wavering shadow of Carol's head onto the wall directly behind her. She momentarily looks over to the face of a ticking clock, sitting on top of the bookcase. The hands display a time of 25 past midnight. Carol sits back on the sofa, rests her head on the blankets, and tries to relax. Her legs are crossed, and her left foot sandshoe twitches up and down. Outside, the strong wind howls through the trees, shaking the branches. Eventually, Carol dozes off. Her eyeballs move slowly, back and forth, under her eyelids, as she begins to dream. Outside, there is the sharp sound of twigs cracking, under the force of footsteps. Then there is the sound of those footsteps, approaching the cottage. Carol continues to dream, and is unaware of this. Then, there is a loud, single knock on the door. Carol's eyes snap open wide. The handle of the door now rattles, repeatedly. Carol rises up from her chair, looking fearful. She stares at the front door, and then her gaze fixes on a stand next to the fireplace. The door handle rattles, again, impatiently. Carol's brow is deeply furrowed and her heart is pounding in her chest. She steps, quickly, to the fire stand and grabs a thick, iron poker. She holds it with both hands.